Okay. Let me share my screen. Hi, everyone. My name is Yousuf. I'm a fourth-year PhD student in Center for... Oh, okay. Okay. I'm fourth-year PhD student in Center for Imaging Science, RIT. So today I'll be talking about some of my recent projects. So the goal of my research is build efficient continual learning methods for real-world application. Okay, so today I'll cover the introduction and motivation behind continual learning, overview of different problem setting algorithms and some assumption, and also go over what are the main challenges to solve and achieve higher impacts, what are the limitations of current continual learning system, and I'll cover our contribution and with results and insights. And finally, I'll talk about future direction. So what is continual learning? So continual learning is the ability of an intelligent system to sequentially acquire new knowledge over time. And while learning new knowledge, it has to retain its old knowledge over time. And it has to use as little computational overhead as possible. And continual, if we can contrast continual learning with our traditional static machine learning, we can see here that static machine learning learns once on a fixed data set, and then it can be deployed, and it cannot have the ability to learn sequentially over time. Conversely, continual learning has the ability to acquire new knowledge from new data over time, and then it can be deployed in the process. So it has the adaptability to align with real-world applications. So what is the motivation behind continual learning? So continual learning tries to mimic how humans and animals learn over time as we learn continually over the course of our lifetime. So an artificial general intelligence system should be learn like us, like continually and efficiently over time. So let's look at some application of continual learning. So it has a wide range of application. At one is extreme, we have large production system AI, large production AI system, which is written from scratch when the new data is available. And it's very expensive to retain this large model, especially large language models. And at another extreme, we have on-device learning, where like for mobile platform, we have to adapt edge devices to personalize our devices according to our preference. So that would be another application. So in both extreme, continual learning can fit nicely into this wide range of applications. So why is continual learning challenging? So as you can see on the left figure, if we just naively fine-tune a model on new data, the performance drops significantly, and because it just tries to mimic everything on the new data, and it doesn't have the ability to retain old knowledge. So the performance drops significantly, as you can see here. Okay, so so we call this forgetting. If we have an upper bound, which is a static machine learning that has access to all data, and it can be trained on all the data available, and then it achieves higher performance. So if we take this as upper bound, and then we compare with a continual learning system, which does not have access to all data, but it has access to some part of data over time, and it tries to learn everything from that particular batch, and also tries to retain knowledge. But at the end of the continual learning, you can see there's a huge drop in terms of the offline upper bound. So we call this forgetting. So this is one challenge. Another challenge is compute overhead, because on the right curve, you can see if there's no bound on compute, then different kind of continual learning system outperform a naive ERM baseline. But when we bound the compute, then all their performance goes below to this a very simple naive baseline. So it's very challenging to match or exceed this offline upper bound in a compute restricted setup. So let's look at different scenarios of continual learning. So we have like two extreme. First is class incremental learning. So this is the example of class incremental learning where the data set is split into different tasks or batches, and those batch contains mutually exclusive categories. So one category seen at a particular time, it cannot be revisited in future. So, but this is extremely edge case scenario for real world application. But we try to study this to develop our system robust to this class incremental setting because it imposes maximum catastrophic forgetting. And there's another setup which we call continual IID, independent and identically distributed, where the data contains any arbitrary number of classes. So this does not have edge distribution as class incremental learning. So this does not impose severe forgetting. It has it's kind of easy setup, but in real world application, there would be a situation where this both can appear or a combination of these two can appear. So most of the models need to be adapted to this both of these settings. But surprisingly, most continual learning methods only focus on class incremental learning, which is extreme edge case. But we want to focus developing more like robust system that can be widely applicable for different range of settings. So let's look at different continual learning paradigms. So on the left, there's a widely so this is the left one is widely studied a continual learning paradigm, which is class incremental batch learning. So over time, a model receives a batch of data that can contain mutually exclusive categories, and then it has to adapt to that batch, and then there's no compute bound, so it can loop over the data multiple times, and then after learning that big batch, it can now predict, and it goes to the next batch and so on over time. And in between of these batches, it can only perform a prediction. As opposed to this expensive setting, there's some more challenging setting that is called online learning. So here, model only sees one example at a time and then instantly adapt to the input. And then it has to also retain all the previous knowledge. And it goes over the data set sample by sample. So it's more challenging to prevent forgetting in this setup. So recently we have proposed another continual learning paradigm, which combines these two paradigms, because in many applications, there would be a situation where learner has to learn both of these settings. So briefly, I'll describe this. So first, the learner adapts to the dataset sample by sample, and then there would be a scheduled downtime where the model will perform batch learning. That is the leftmost paradigm. And so an example would be like our mobile device, like AR, VR, or mobile phones will adapt to new user information and then consolidate this information during downtime, like when the devices are being charged or users are asleep. So what are the major challenges in continual learning? So there are two major challenges. First one is catastrophic forgetting that I briefly described. So this is basically when adapting to new information, model does not have a memory of past knowledge. So an example would be like after learning English, if a machine learning system adapts to Spanish, then it does not remember English partially or depending on the situation. But that is not how humans learn. So we try to retain the old information, and majority of the continual learning work focus on this core problem, catastrophic forgetting. And there's another challenge in continual learning, which is efficiency, because as I described earlier, while learning new information and adapting new situation, model cannot increase the computational overhead. So it has to be restricted, and it has to use as little computational overhead as possible. So unfortunately, efficiency perspective is widely unexplored or understudied in continual learning. But in our work, we try to focus on both things, like mitigating catastrophic forgetting and also being efficient over time. So what would be the big impacts of continual learning? So as we can see, like training AI model is very expensive, and it has environmental limitation, like it emits a huge number of huge amount of carbon emission, and that you can see in this figure, like it's significantly larger than any other sources of carbon emissions. So if we can use continual learning instead of traditional AI, when we need to adapt to new data, then it can reduce computational cost and also reduce carbon emissions significantly. So this will be a bigger impact. So what are the continual learning algorithms that are available? So there are mainly three categories. First one is dynamic expansion. On the leftmost figure, you can see like when you need to learn a new task, you make another copy of the network, and then that particular copy is dedicated to learn that specific task. And as the number of tasks grows, you grow the number of a model. And as you can see, it would be very expensive to maintain this huge number of model if there are a lot of tasks to learn, and that causes like computational memory overhead to significantly grow over time. And another approach is regularization or distillation, where you impose some constraint on the loss function to penalize the large deviation from the past weight updates. So there would be some optimization trick that you can impose for mitigating catastrophic forgetting. And another part is distillation, where you also, when learning a new task, you also keep an old copy of a new model, and then you distill the knowledge from old model to the new model over time. So, but the problem is like it has also higher memory overhead and computational overhead. And during test time, you have to kind of know like which data comes from which task, and try to allocate these task-specific models or modules over time. And that would be very expensive and also hard to align with real-world application. And another one is very simple algorithm, which is called rehearsal or replay. So basically, you train your model on new data, and you keep a certain number of old data in a restricted memory buffer, and then when you have to train new model, you just train it on new data combined with some old data. But this does not maintain multiple copies of the model, or it does not have like additional memory or computational overhead. So this is simple, but till now, this is highly performant compared to the other algorithms. So let's look at the limitation of existing continual learning algorithms. So most of the methods do not show ability to scale to large data set, and they only work on very small scale data set, like split MNIST or split CIFAR-10. But in real world application, model needs to adapt to a large scale data, ideally never ending. So it has to be able to scale, and also it has to be efficient over time. And so that's why we need to focus more on like a general real world setting where we can adapt to large scale data set. And another limitation is most of the methods are very computationally expensive, and it's very hard to align them with real world application. Because most of this method only focus on catastrophic forgetting, and most of their performance gains come from higher computation because they don't usually restrict the computation. So in our recent work, we show that existing continual learning algorithms are not efficient. As you can see on the left curve, we plotted the number of updates each method requires to gain a certain number of performance. So that is based on ImageNet accuracy. And if we compare with the offline learner, most of the algorithms take more compute than the offline learner, which defeats the objective of continual learning, because we have to be more efficient, at least more efficient than offline method. And in terms of memory, they also require huge amount of memory, and that is also another limitation. So the next limitation is usually they emphasize more on memory, and there's no constraint on compute. So that is also very unrealistic assumption, because cost of deep learning depends mainly on compute. As we can see in the next slide, that if we just store the largest data set of continual learning, that is YFCC, it has like 100 million images. And over the year, the storage cost has significantly declined. So as of 2017, storing this 100 million data set cost only $83. But if we train just a very simple continual learning method on a subset of this data set, it costs over $2,000. So this is so computational cost is hugely exceeding storage cost. And another example is ImageNet, where it requires only 66 cents to store whole ImageNet, but if you train it using 1 million iteration, that is still very less. It costs $500 for one experiment. So that is hugely cost expensive. So we argue that a continual learning system should have these following properties, where it will be efficient over time. It should not just work effectively on small scale data set, but also has ability to scale, and they should be able to work on a different kind of data ordering scheme, from like class incremental learning to continual IID setting, and also work also be robust across batch sizes, because all the other methods work effectively when there's a large amount of data. But in real world situation, we often need to adapt to very small amount of data, even a single input. So in our work, we try to incorporate these properties, and one of our method has all the properties that an ideal continual learner needs. So I'll just describe that project. So it's called Siesta for efficient online continual learning. So Siesta adapts from Remind, which is a prior work from our lab. So it basically works, adapts latent rehearsal. So latent rehearsal is like, so as you can store some number of old inputs, you don't have to store like raw images or raw data. So instead, for memory efficiency, you can just store hidden representation so that it does not have higher memory footprint. So Siesta is based on hippocampal indexing theory and compressed representation for replay. So we call it compressed representation replay because like humans and animal usually learn by storing compressed representation and reactivating this representation during sleep. So they don't store like all the raw input. So we draw inspiration from this mechanism, and then we try to mimic this in continual learning system. So what are the benefits of doing this kind of latent rehearsal? So as we know, like from the previous work, the earlier layers of the network is very universal and can be transferable to unseen tasks. And conversely, the top part of the network is very task specific and needs to be updated during training. So then we also incorporate sleep and wake phase. So during wake, Siesta stores these recent wake experience in compressed form for fast learning, and then during sleep phase, it reactivates or reconstruct back this wake experience to consolidate during sleep. And this is I'll describe this in detail. So what does wake how wake performs during continual learning? So during wake phase, Siesta performs rapid online learning while it adapts to one input at a time. and it does not train the network at all. So it instead it uses a data-driven approach to update the output layer of the network. And it offers a lot of nice properties, like it does not have rehearsal, backpropagation, or any training. So it is very computationally efficient. And during sleep phase, we can siesta performs compute restricted offline learning, where it can reactivate some of the experience from the storage to update the remaining part of the network. So that would be also very brief. And after sleep, then wake cycle resumes, and this wake sleep cycle oscillates. So how do we update the output layer during wake? So it's very simple. Like when a new input is available, you just extract hidden representation and then store it in compressed form. So this storage is acting as episodic memory center, and then you pass this to the remaining part of the network, and at the output layer, you can update the weight of the corresponding class using a running average of the embeddings from the G layer. So that is basically the penultimate embedding vectors that we update during online learning, and then update the corresponding class units in the output layer. So this is very simple and does not have any computational overhead, and it's very quick and realistic. So what happens during sleep is we reactivate some of the old information back, and using a rehearsal policy. So rehearsal policy tries to find what are the important features or data available to update the network over time. For siesta, we just adapt widely used uniform random sampling, which is very strong baseline for large scale problem. So uniformly, it selects a certain number of data and construct a mini batch, and then update the network iteratively. So during sleep, it minimizes the optimization loss, and but it has to respect a certain number of compute overheads. So you model is only allowed to perform certain number of update, and then achieve optimum performance. So the sleep is restricted by M. So M is basically a number of sample used to compute stochastic gradient descent update. So sleep length is fixed, and it occurs at regular interval. So let's look at the performance. So on the left side, we demonstrate that sleep enhances learning. So here we compare what happens before and after sleep. So as you can see, as a result of sleep, the accuracy goes up across all the tasks. And it also supports our hypothesis that sleep enhances memory consolidation and also benefits continual learning. And on the right side, we compare it with state-of-the-art online learning method, that is Remind, across 4 different benchmark data sets. And Siesta outperforms Remind in all these setup. And additionally, it is also very faster to train. Particularly, Siesta is 4x3x faster than Remind for ImageNet, and 4.4x faster than Remind on Places standard data set, both of our large scale data set. So yeah, another milestone is Siesta achieves no forgetting, because I mentioned earlier the core motivation of continual learning is efficiency and catastrophic forgetting. So we need to be efficient and also minimize forgetting. So here I'm showing the learning curve of ImageNet data set. So as you can see, Siesta, at the end, Siesta achieves no forgetting. That means it matches offline accuracy, while other methods have significant drop in terms of final performance. Basically, they forget over time, and at the end, they have forgetting compared to the offline learner. So this is a milestone, and Siesta achieves zero forgetting for the first time. And we also want the system to be robust to different data orderings or problem setting. As you can see here, when we compare with the other methods, Siesta maintains similar performance for both IID and class incremental, and also matches offline accuracy, whereas other methods like remind or experience replay, their performance degrade when they switch to IID to class incremental learning. So they are not robust to different data orderings, unlike Siesta. And we also perform a statistical evaluation and found that there's no significant difference between Siesta and offline model for both of these class incremental learning and IID setting. So that basically supports that it has achieved no forgetting. And here on this slide, all the methods use same network architecture, computer memory constraints. So another goal is efficiency. So on the left curve, you can see so this compares different methods with Siesta in terms of compute. So here we report flops. So as we increase the model, as we increase the dataset size, the gap between Siesta and other methods increase. It indicates that Siesta is becoming more efficient and much more computationally efficient than other methods. So for example, if we just compare what happens if we increase the model size by 10x. So let's say we take ImageNet and then make 10x time a larger data set. And then it shows that Siesta achieves 2x more efficiency than Remind, which is also very efficient state-of-the-art method. And on the right side, you can see like here we try to show that we try to compare Siesta with a different number of continual learning methods in terms of number of updates. So an ideal continual learner should achieve higher accuracy using less compute. And as you can see that Siesta locates at the top rightmost corner. So that means it uses less compute in terms of number of updates and achieves higher accuracy while outperforming other methods. And the circle size denotes the model size. So other methods also use a higher number of parameters. So even like bigger models, but they still is very computationally expensive. And Siesta is uses less compute and also parameters to outperform them. So here we are comparing Siesta with all kind of continual learning methods from like vision transformer based, CNN based, and different kind of algorithms. So here Siesta achieves state-of-the-art performance and it outperforms prior arts. This is based on ImageNet data set. So I'll next talk about another paper that we have worked on. So it's called, as you remember, like for Siesta, we did not apply any principled rehearsal policy, how to sample a mini batch that that improves learning. Like so, because previously we found that only uniform random sampling is good enough, and other principled rehearsal policy did not work efficiently. So the motivation behind this project is to find a smart selection policy to achieve higher computational efficiency. So, so what is rehearsal policy? So as you can remember, in rehearsal-based continual learning, we keep a certain number of data in the storage, and during training, we sample a mini batch from this previous example and then train the model. So like it is found in previous work that not every example is equally important, and so there would be like redundant information. So if you want to efficiently update your network, you need to extract like important sample that can correspond to higher learning efficiency. And so there's two perspective in continual learning: memory and compute perspective. So memory perspective is how to store efficiently over time. So that is basically how what we store and remove to maintain a budgeted memory buffer. And another one is compute perspective. So how to efficiently select these samples during training that can translate to higher computational efficiency. So we focus on compute perspective. And for memory perspective, we just assume a memory policy and we focus on compute perspective. So just to mention, like most existing continual learning methods do not focus on compute perspective. So most of the methods proposed a different policy how to store and remove data for maintaining a budgeted memory buffer. So they mainly focused on memory perspective. So in a recent work, they compared uniform random rehearsal policy with different kind of principled rehearsal policy, and they showed that most principled policies do not show clear advantage over uniform class balanced rehearsal policy. So all the principled and fancier rehearsal policies are basically they underperform very simple uniform random sampling for large scale data set. And we also found in our work when we compare different rehearsal policies on ImageNet and also a long tail data set, and we also had similar conclusion. So where uniform baseline works effectively and outperforms other. So our objective is to find a smarter rehearsal policy that can outperform uniform random policy. So here's the ideas. This is called GRASP, gradually select less prototypical. So so the idea is you sample easy examples first and then progressively sample harder examples over time. So for each of this category, you take the class mean and then select easy samples that are near this class mean. So the samples near class means are mostly most prototypical examples. That means highly class representative. And another extreme is sampling examples that are far from class mean, that are less prototypical and less class representative, and they can be harder. So we start with very easy samples and then gradually add up to higher, like difficult samples. And that corresponds to higher computational efficiency, as this can be shown here, where we compared GRASP with uniform class balanced rehearsal, and we varied compute. So that means number of updates. And as you can see, for each of these computational overhead, GRASP outperforms uniform rehearsal policy, and it matches maximum accuracy of rehearsal policy while saving 9.2 million network updates. So it's not only outperforming uniform random policy, but also being efficient in terms of saving huge number of computational overhead. And then we varied, here we try to show what happens if you vary memory constant and also compute constant, and compare with other different kind of rehearsal policy that have been proposed in other works. And across all settings, GRASP outperforms other rehearsal policies. And this is the ImageNet 1K learning curve. So here we trying to compare GRASP with uniform balanced policy for different kind of rehearsal settings. So that means veridical and latent rehearsal. So veridical means when you store raw images or data in the buffer, and latent means when you store like hidden representation. So in both settings, GRASP outperforms uniform class balanced rehearsal. And we also compared training time and found out that GRASP is 1.6x faster than uniform balanced rehearsal. And we also try to see what happens if we combine this strategy with existing continual learning methods that are widely used, like DER, PP, and GDAM, and across all the settings, ranging from latent rehearsal to vertical rehearsal, GRASP provides benefit over uniform random policy. So additional findings are, we also conducted an NLP experiment, that is continual text classification, and found that GRASP outperforms uniform balanced in that setting. It also worked well in long tail recognition tasks. It also performs well with a vision transformer architecture besides CNN. So I'll discuss our next paper. This is about overcoming the stability gap in continual learning. So what is stability gap? So stability gap refers to an observation when the model is being adapted to new task, the performance on old task immediately drops. And then over training, it recovers old performance partially or fully. And usually the common practice in continual learning is when the model learns the task fully, then you measure the performance. So that is basically indicated by the diamond, the red diamond here. But before, during learning, the performance drops significantly. And our hypothesis was this is basically making the continual learning system inefficient. So if we can prevent this large drop earlier, then we don't need to train it longer. And that would increase the computational efficiency. So in our work, we proposed some mitigation approach, how to prevent this large drop on old tasks. And we showed that when we compare with conventional method that does not have these mitigation strategies, their performance drops significantly. And even like applying large training, their performance gradually increases, but does not fully recover the old performance. Whereas our method does not have this big drop, and also matches or exceeds offline upper bound. And it does not take large number of training iteration. So what are the hypotheses behind this work? So first one is the stability gap is caused in part due to having a large loss at the output layer. So on the left figure, you can see if we do not apply any mitigation, the loss at the output layer starts from very high value and then gradually decreases over training iteration. Whereas if we apply our mitigation protocol, then this loss can be minimized at the beginning of the training, and then it goes down. And that corresponds to the performance. So that is indicated in the middle figure here. So if we apply mitigation to prevent this large loss at the output layer, then the model performs better in terms of accuracy over time. And the second hypothesis was the stability gap is caused in part due to excessive network plasticity. I'll discuss this in the next slide. So to prevent, for the first hypothesis, we tested two of our mitigation approach. First one is weight initialization. So it turns out if we keep the output layer weight randomly initialized, so that causes higher loss at the output layer. So if we instead apply data-driven approach, where we update the output layer class weight based on the class mean vector, that is basically taking all the embeddings from the penultimate layer and grabbing the class mean, and then use that class mean for initializing the output layer weight. And that corresponds to minimizing this loss at the output layer initially, and that corresponds to higher accuracy. And the second approach is dynamic soft target. So it turns out, so the common practice to train a neural network is using hard targets, that is one-hot encoding. So basically you have a maximum signal for the ground truth class, and all the other classes are suppressed. Instead of that, we propose soft targets. So that is basically, you still prioritize higher signal for the correct class level, but you also retain a distribution for other classes. So you do not suppress them and penalize. Instead, you just preserve the class semantic information, and that will preserve model's old knowledge. And how to construct this soft target. So that is basically during training, you take models softmax class prediction. So if model predicts correctly, then you take its output softmax probabilities, and then for each of this category, you construct a soft target. So basically, you take this softmax output, and then you maintain a running average of this softmax class output. And for each of these class, you maintain these soft targets, and you train your network using these soft targets instead of hard targets. And that basically minimizes the higher loss at the output layer. So as we can see in the figure, using soft targets, that is the green curve, it minimizes the loss. So it starts from lower value than hard target, and then gradually decreases. And we also compare weight initialization, so that performs even better. So that it starts with very low loss at the output layer in the beginning, and then gradually drops. So for our second hypothesis, we explored limiting plasticity in the network using low rank adaptation. So in NLP, low rank adaptation is widely used because fine-tuning large language model is very expensive. So they try to figure out how to efficiently adapt a part of the network instead of all the full model, and then achieve similar performance as full fine-tuning. But in computer vision, it's underexplored. So we try to use low-rank adaptation to minimize the plasticity or balance the plasticity in the network. So for low-rank adaptation, you have so you can inject this low-rank adaptation to adapt any layer. So you just keep the original weight matrix as it is, and then add a LoRa matrix that is temporarily injected, try to adapt the original weight. So the original pretend weight vector can be reparameterized with LoRa weight matrix pair, where LoRa will just do a random projection to a low rank subspace, and then that would be enough to learn or adapt that particular layer or weight matrix. And during training, we also inject this LoRa weight matrix pair to adapt some linear layers of the CNN block. And during training, we only adapt this LoRa weight matrices and keep the pretend network frozen. So it's very light to train. And then after training, we just merge this LoRa weight matrix into the original weight matrices. So it does not increase any inference cost. So it's just like temporarily you are keeping this additional random matrix and adapt the original weight. And it's very computationally efficient. And we also found this solves the excessive plasticity in the deep neural network. And another strategy is old output class freezing. So we are trying to preserve the old representation for the hidden layers, but it turns out output layer can be also important for preserving the old knowledge. So for preserving old knowledge, we freeze the old class units in the output layer and only train the new class units. And that also is found effective. So on the leftmost curve, we can see like when we use LoRa, the degradation in the beginning is largely prevented. So as you can see, when here we're trying to show like if we adapt the entire network, the performance on old tasks significantly drops and it does not fully recover. And when we just update the output layer, then there's the drop is minimized, but still it has some drop. And if we have apply LoRa and output. If we apply LoRa, then the drop is not that significant. It's still, and it preserved the old performance while we train the network. And we try to see what happens across class, like what happens to the new task and old task and all the seen tasks. So we can see here, like, so we call this method SGM, and we compare with vanilla. So vanilla means like it's just regular continual learner. It does not have these mitigation properties. And as you can see, for the new task, the performance improved significantly, and it also maintains higher accuracy for old task, and on all seen tasks, the performance is improved over vanilla. And this is based on ImageNet and Places dataset. So that is 1,365 classes. So this is a large problem setting. Then we tried to explore what happens if we combine this mitigation approach to like other continual learning methods. So, and we also examine their performance when we vary storage constraint. So as you can see, for different constraint, applying our mitigation approach improved performance for each of these continual learning method. When we impose more constraint on memory, like when it's become more challenging, the performance gain is like significantly higher in terms of accuracy when we compare when we compare each of these algorithm versus when they use our mitigation approach. So the performance is improved over like 10% on ImageNet and Places standard dataset. So that is like a huge gain in terms of being effective on large scale dataset. And then we also compare our method in online continual learning setting, which is more challenging. And for this, we examine Remind and try to incorporate our mitigation approach into this online continual learning system, Remind. And for a different memory constraint, our mitigation approaches provide benefit in terms of final performance, and also improving the stability gap. So that is basically the drop on old performance. So it provides 10.5% improvement, which is huge for 1,200 classes dataset. And we also, beside rehearsal-based method, we also explored non-rehearsal method. For this, we selected learning without forgetting, which is widely used in continual learning. That is based on knowledge distillation. And here we try to see like what happens if we apply our strategy into this non-rehearsal method. And as you can see, like this knowledge distillation method has higher stability gap. That means the performance decreases over time significantly. Whereas if it is combined with our method, the performance is mostly retained over time. And that translates into having higher accuracy on the final performance. So as you can see here, yeah, it just struggles in this setting. So it has very low final accuracy, but with our method, it performs significantly better. So in particular, 35% accuracy gain. And also our objective was to, besides being performant, our objective is to be efficient over time. So on the left curve, we are demonstrating that what happens when our method learns over time, like in terms of performance and also efficiency. That means like number of network updates. So as you can see, like while learning new tasks sequentially, our method has higher performance that is indicated here. and also using less network updates. So y-axis is network updates. And it's being efficient. That means over time, it's using even less less network updates than the previous task. So that indicates that it's being efficient over time. So over time, it requires less number of network updates. And if we compare vanilla, it does not have this kind of trend. Like it's taking much more network update, and also it does not perform well. Like accuracy is significantly drop as indicated here. And also, so this is based on learning new knowledge. How about retaining old knowledge? So for this, we try to see like when retaining new knowledge, how much compute the model requires. So, and we compare like with and without our mitigation approach. So the hyphen means the network does not fully recover old performance. So, and zero means like there's no drop in the old performance. So with our method, you can see like sometimes there's no drop, and we also showing how much the model recovers old performance back. So all the time our method retains old performance back fully and even partially, and does not have this drop for some of these tasks. Whereas without our method, the model does not fully recover old performance, and sometimes it recovers full performance, but using much more computational overhead, like in terms of number of network updates.
We're at time, just
Yeah, so I'm just about to finish. So yeah, this is the concluding remarks. So we demonstrate that CSTA meets the properties of an ideal continual learning system. It achieves geo-forgetting, which is a milestone. We also demonstrate that GRASP is an efficient rehearsal policy. And also we demonstrate that a stability gap in continual learning can be mitigated using our approach with significant computational gain. And in summary, our model has potential to replace conventional training from scratch that is very expensive. Also reducing carbon footprint and computational cost of deep learning. And it can be widely applicable for various problem setting, large scale and different kind of situation. And for future direction, our method can be extended in other problems that we did not study, like continual object detection, analogical reasoning, or continual language understanding. Yeah, with that, I will just acknowledge. I want to thank my advisor, Professor Christopher Kanan, and my colleagues and co-authors, Jair, Tyler, Ronald. And I also want to thank Robik, Junu, and Shikhar for their feedback on our manuscript. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Yousuf. Do we have